My parents wrote me out of their will. Here's how I got back at them. 1. The golden child and the black sheep. I grew up in what seemed like a normal family, until I realized that family doesn't always mean fair. My parents had 2 kids. Me, 32M, the responsible one. I worked hard, put myself through college, and never asked my parents for a dime. My younger brother, Jake, 29M, the golden child. He got everything handed to him on a silver platter. Needed a car? Dad bought him one. Needed money? Mom wired it immediately. Failed his classes? No consequences. Meanwhile, I was expected to figure everything out on my own. I didn't think much of it growing up, I just assumed that's how things were. But things changed drastically when our parents started talking about their will. 2. The shocking betrayal. A year ago, my dad casually mentioned at a family dinner that he and Mom had been working on their estate plan. Dad, yeah, we're just making sure everything's in order in case something happens to us. Me, that's smart. I assume you're splitting things evenly between Jake and me? Mom, awkward silence. Jake, smirking like an idiot. That's when my parents dropped the bombshell. They wrote me out of the will. They were leaving everything, the house, their savings, their investments, to Jake. I laughed at first because I thought they were joking. They weren't. Mom, sweetie, you don't need the money. You're doing great on your own. Jake, on the other hand, has had a rough time. Me, a rough time? You mean failing out of college twice and refusing to get a job? Dad, you have to understand, he needs this more than you do. I was speechless. I had worked my ass off to build a stable life while Jake had mooched off them for years, and yet, I was being punished for being successful. That night, I left dinner furious. But if they thought I was just going to roll over and accept it, they were dead wrong. 3. The perfect revenge plan. At first, I tried to reason with them. I calmly explained that this was completely unfair. Me, so, let me get this straight. I do everything right, and I get nothing. Jake does nothing, and he gets everything? Mom, it's not about fairness. It's about need. That was the moment I realized something. They didn't see me as their son anymore. They saw me as their backup plan, the one they could discard because I didn't need them financially. Fine. If they wanted to play favorites, I'd make them regret it. 4. Cutting them off completely. The first thing I did? I went no contact. I blocked them on everything, no calls, no texts, no visits. If I wasn't part of their family and their will, then they weren't part of my life. At first, they didn't seem to care. They had Jake, their perfect little prince, so why would they need me? Then came the financial problems. Turns out, my parents weren't as rich as they pretended to be. Their retirement plans weren't as solid as they thought, and suddenly, they were running out of money. And guess what? Jake wasn't helping them. At all. They started calling me, begging for money. Mom, sweetie, we're struggling to pay the mortgage this month. Dad, we could really use some help with the bills. Oh, now they needed me? I responded once. Me, sorry, I don't have any money to spare. You should ask Jake, he's getting everything when you're gone, after all. And then? I hung up. 5. The ultimate karma. Months went by. Jake bled them dry. He borrowed thousands from them, promised to pay it back, never did, and kept asking for more. They even took out a second mortgage on their house to keep supporting him. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. They lost the house. Their savings were gone. Jake disappeared the moment they ran out of money. And me? I was thriving. I got promoted at work, bought a beautiful house, and built the life they never believed I needed. 6. The final insult. Last month, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my mom. She sounded exhausted, like life had completely drained her. Mom, honey, I know things have been rough between us. But, your father and I were wondering if we could stay with you for a little while. Oh. So now they wanted me back? I took a deep breath and said the words I had waited so long to say. Me, sorry, I don't have any room. Maybe Jake can help you. She started crying. I hung up. That was the last time I ever spoke to them. 7. Where things stand now. My parents are broke and have no one to help them. Jake vanished the moment their money ran out. I'm happy, successful, and surrounded by people who actually appreciate me. Do I feel guilty? Not even a little. They made their choice. And when they needed me the most, they realized the truth. They had already thrown me away. Update: my parents wrote me out of their will. Here's how I got back at them. After I cut them off, my parents struggled for months. Without me as their backup plan, they had no safety net. Jake, their golden child, completely ghosted them. They lost the house and had to move into a rundown apartment. Dad had to get a job again at 65. Mom started calling every relative she could, hoping someone would bail them out. At first, I figured that was the end of it. They made their choice, they suffered the consequences, and I was finally free of them. I was wrong. 2. The desperate phone call. About 2 weeks ago, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally, I don't pick up, but something told me to answer. It was my dad. Dad, son, please, we need to talk. Me, I have nothing to say to you. Dad, sighs, I know we made mistakes. But we need your help. Here's where it gets interesting. They didn't just want money this time. They wanted to move in with me. Dad, your mom isn't doing well. The stress has been too much. We don't have anywhere else to go. Me, what about Jake? Dad, we haven't spoken to him in months. Shocker. He started rambling about how family should stick together and blood is thicker than water. I let him talk for a minute before I said, Me, you already made your choice. You left me out of your will. You gave everything to Jake. Maybe you should call him instead. Then? I hung up. 3. The final betrayal and ultimate karma. Here's the best part. A few days after that call, I got a message from my cousin, Sarah. She told me my parents had been scammed. Apparently, after I cut them off, they started looking for financial help elsewhere. Some guy posed as a financial advisor and promised to help them rebuild their wealth. They handed over the last of their savings. And guess what? The guy disappeared. Now, they were completely broke, and this time, for real. No house. No money. No golden child to save them. 4. Where things stand now. Heavy checkmark: my parents are officially ruined. Heavy checkmark: they have no home, no savings, and no one to bail them out. Heavy checkmark: Jake still refuses to talk to them. Heavy checkmark: I'm living my best life, debt-free, happy, and thriving. Am I going to help them? Absolutely not. They chose their side years ago. Now, they're finally learning what it feels like to be discarded. So, Reddit, what do you think? Did they deserve it? Or should I feel guilty? Spoiler, I don't.